Make sure this thing records because it messed up for my first class and didn't record anything. Okay, we are picking up. Where is it? So we left off the other day with Gandalf falling in Moria and telling the others to fly and such. And we're going to pick up on page 338. And my goal for today is to get us to page 463. Wow, all of 130 pages. In the fourth chapter of Two Towers. 338. So they get out of Moria, and they pause for a minute because, they're concerned about Frodo because he got speared by a troll. And it turns out he wasn't speared because he was wearing a mithril coat. Where'd he get it? Bilbo gave it to him back in Rivendell. It was one of Bilbo's heirlooms, let's say, that he got in The Hobbit. Okay? Bilbo also gave him Sting, his sword. So they're going to become important later on. And also there, on page 338, they're debating where to go now. All right? Aragorn says we should head for Lothlorien. And Boromir asks, just about exact middle of the page, is there no other way? I mean, come on. Aragorn, there's got to be another way we can go. Aragorn asks, what other fairer way would you desire? What does he mean by fairer? Because he doesn't mean more fair as in how we use the word fair. Like, that's not fair. That means that's not equal, that's not the same, that's not being treated, equitably kind of thing. It's not what he means. He means fair in the older English meaning, beautiful. What more beautiful way would you desire? What greater way would you desire? Okay? And by using that word, he's implying, we really need to go to Lothlorien. It's like it'll charge our batteries. Boromir, a plain road, though it led through a hedge of swords. Just a straight road, even if we had to go through a hedge of swords to get onto it. What is that telling us about Boromir and his attitude towards Lothlorien? Well, look at what he says. By strange paths has this company been led, and so far to evil fortune. Strange meaning out of the ordinary, out of the way, unknown. Against my will, we passed under the shades of Moria, to our loss. See, he is also mourning Gandalf's fall. And now we must enter the Golden Wood? Of that perilous land we have heard in Gondor, and it is said that few come out who once go in. So what is his experience of the Golden Wood?
No good.
Okay. Let me clue in on it or specify his experience.
He hasn't been, he's just heard about it.
He hasn't been there. They've heard about it in Gondor. Okay? And then we get that, and it is said, again, we've heard. Those are rumors. That few come out who once go in. So, notice, who have they heard it from? Have they heard it from those who go in? The implication is no, because few who go in come out. And of that few, the few who do come out, none have escaped unscathed. Those last two words, escaped, tells us or implies what about Lothlorien or the Golden Wood from the attitude of Gondorians?
They're being held captive.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a prison. Okay? Unscathed means what? Unharmed. You know, if an attack is scathing, a verbal attack is scathing. If someone says, you know, issues this scathing speech about XYZ, what does that speech do about XYZ? It tears them to shreds, verbally. Okay? You can similarly have a scathing physical attack that does what? Tears you to shreds, like being flayed or flogged. You know, like with cat o' nine tails, a stick with some ropes on it, and then pieces of like barbed wire at the end of the rope. So when you smack it across somebody's back, that barbed wire catches the flesh and then rips it off. Okay, that would be scathing somebody. So he says, few escape unscathed, undamaged, unharmed. Look at Aragorn's response. Say not unscathed, but if you say unchanged, you'll speak the truth. If you go into Lothlorien, you will not enter the same person. You will be changed by your experience there. And he's kind of saying, there's something about Lothlorien. Okay? But lore wanes in Gondor Boromir, if in the city those who once were wise now speak evil of Lothlorien. Now, how did Boromir modify the word land when he was talking about Lothlorien? What word does he use? Perilous. We don't use the word perilous anymore. We don't even use the word peril anymore. We don't say so-and-so is imperiled or so-and-so is in peril. We say danger instead. Our vocabulary narrows and narrows and narrows down as the years go by. We use fewer and fewer and fewer words. It means full of peril, but what does peril mean? Life and death. Tolkien begins the fairy story essay saying, one of the characteristics of fairy, the land or realm of fairy, is that it is perilous. If you go into there, like if you enter into a fairy world, and in this part of the essay, he's talking about like they're real, okay? You are going into dangerous territory. If we were talking about a map, an old map of the world, you know, that has an ocean, and then it'll have land. Well, you can put the Latin terra incognita, unknown land, but then often what would map makers have? Here there be dragons. You could die here very, very easily. He says, perilous? Oh yeah, it's perilous. That land is perilous. You can die in Lothlorien. Okay? Boromir, lead on, but it is perilous. And he says it again. Dangerous, dangerous land. Perilous indeed. In other words, you're right. Does Boromir, again, have any personal knowledge of the Golden Wood or Lothlorien? No, he's never been there. Aragorn has numerous times. It's where his girlfriend spends most of her time. It's where Arwen lives most of the year. Or years, I should say. Perilous indeed, fair, beautiful, and perilous. But only evil need fear it, or those who bring some evil with them. So, like evil incarnate should fear Lothlorien. Evil creatures should fear Lothlorien, who apparently does not enter Lorien or Lothlorien. Who's following them at this point? Gollum is. Gollum does not go into Lothlorien. He goes around. Okay? Boromir does go in. And that's why Aragorn, throws out that little warning, or those who bring some evil with them. What did Boromir do when he saw the ring? His eyes glint. Later on, he kind of suggests to Frodo, I don't mean later on after this, after that scene in Rivendell, as they were trying to go across the mountain pass, he kind of let slip to Frodo, maybe you should loan me the ring, kind of a thing. Okay? So they do go into Lothlorien. And they meet before they meet Celeborn and Galadriel. What must they do before they can actually enter into the land of Lothlorien? They meet Haldir the elf, right? And he comes and he goes, okay, but before we do, one of you's got to put on a blindfold. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. No. Who's got to put on the blindfold? Gimli. Why? Dwarf. Elves, dwarves. It's like, having the NAACP and the KKK share a conference venue. It just wouldn't work well, okay? There's still... Have Gimli and Legolas bonded yet? No. Are they at each other's throats? No. They're the coldness on both sides is thawing. But this doesn't help things. What kind of elf is Legolas?
Northern elf?
From? He's a northern elf from the woods. He's a wood elf from Mirkwood. Okay? What is Lothlorien compared to Mirkwood? Yeah, it's like heaven, man. It's paradise for a wood elf. Come out here, you got these nice, black walnut trees. Woo, big deal. Okay? I'm from California. I'm from Bay Area, San Jose, and we would go backpacking. My dad and brother and I would go backpacking a few times in the coastal range, between us and Santa Cruz. Well, one of the many kinds of trees that grow there are the giant redwoods. And I'm not kidding. There are trees in the giant redwoods, in the sequoias. There are some that are almost as wide in diameter as this classroom. That's a stinking big tree. Okay? And if you look up, 200, 300 feet, 2,000 years old. Well, that tree would be, like a sapling to some of the trees in Lothlorien. Tolkien loved trees. He's a famous tree hugger. That's why, the environmentalists of the 1960s just fell madly in love with him and stuff. He didn't like people burning and cutting down trees. All right? So, Aragorn says, come on, guys. We all got to do it. And Legolas is like, not me. I got to see these. One for all for one, channel your inner Three Musketeers kind of a thing. Okay? So they do. And they go in and pick up with the chapter, Mirror of Galadriel. Okay? 355. They climb up the tree because Galadriel and Galadriel and Celeborn live in the trees. And Aragorn says, bottom of 355, Gandalf the Grey fell into shadow. Because they all get up to their treehouse, and Celeborn goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Where's the ninth? Where's Gandalf? He was the leader of your company. Aragorn says he fell. Why wasn't I told? Why didn't somebody prepare us for this news? And they say, because we didn't tell Haldir. We didn't tell anybody else. Okay? So, top of the next page, 356. Celeborn says, tell us now the full tale. In other words, I want to know everything. Don't hold anything back. Okay? And Aragorn says everything that happened. And he says it was a shadow and a flame, strong and terrible. Legolas, it was a Balrog of Morgoth. See, Celeborn and Galadriel remember Morgoth very, very well. They go back to the first age. Morgoth was that being, I had written, I think up here on the board the other day, Melkor, the highest or co-highest of the angelic order created by Eru Ilúvatar. Right? Parallel to Satan in our world. right? So one of his servants, Amaya, also. Of all elfbanes, the most deadly, except for Sauron. And then we hear Gimli in a very low voice. Indeed, I saw upon the bridge that which haunts our darkest dreams. I saw Durin's bane. Bane just means death, slayer. Dread was in his eyes. Like no dwarf should ever see this kind of thing. Celeborn, alas, we long have feared that under Caradhras the terror slept. Had I known that the dwarves had stirred up this evil again, I would have forbidden you to pass the northern borders. You and all that went with you. Notice, Celeborn is addressing Gimli. If I'd known you rotten dwarves had stirred up that terror, he's not talking about Gimli stirring up that terror. Balin, years and years ago, okay? But now, Gimli, he says, I would have forbidden you from coming into our land. But not just Gimli. You and all those who travel with you. Why? Kind of like guilt by association, man. You've got this stain that kind of pervades and comes off of you. And if it were possible, one would say that at the last Gandalf fell from wisdom into folly, going needlessly into the net of Moria. Why did you go that way? And notice, Galadriel upbraids him. I mean, this is kind of like a verbal slap. He would be rash indeed that said that thing. Needless were none of the deeds of Gandalf in life. Those that followed him knew not his mind and cannot report his full purpose. Now, she means two different things. Those who followed him, this fellowship, these 8 individuals, they didn't know his full intention. They didn't know everything going on in his mind. Right? Remember when Gandalf says to Frodo, when Frodo says, well, when did you know all this? And he's like, I know a lot that only the wise know, Frodo. I'm not going to tell everything to you. That's one thing that she means. What else does she mean? I think she also means I didn't know everything that Gandalf knew. I wasn't totally clued in to all his purposes or ends, as we talked about before. But however it may be with the guide, the followers are blameless. Now, I'm actually 100% convinced that sentence, that statement, is based upon an interpretation Tolkien wrote of an Old English poem called The Battle of Maldon. It's this. Okay? It commemorates or celebrates a real battle that was fought in 991 by the Anglo-Saxons against the Vikings. Okay? And we're told in that poem, very brief setting, you got a group of Anglo-Saxons, on an island, middle of a river, and it's a tidal river, so when the tide goes out, you can reach the island by a causeway, high ground that's in the river. But you can only reach it one by, single file, right? And the leader of the British force, the English forces, a guy named Byrhtnoth, we're told he's taunted by the Vikings. Yeah, if you were Chicken Lily, you'd fight us. And so he agrees to let the Vikings come across. And the English get slaughtered. It's just a damn stupid move to make on his part. He does it, according to the Old English poem, because of his overmode. That's the English word that's used, which means arrogance, hubris. But I forgot to tell my first class this. Overmode is only used in one context in Old English. About this guy, Byrhtnoth, in every other instance, Satan. So when the Old English poet uses it to describe Byrhtnoth, it's kind of saying, he's got this satanic kind of pride going on. Oh, well, we can win. It's stupid, right? What does this have to do with Tolkien in this line? Tolkien, in this interpretation of the poem, blames Byrhtnoth. He essentially says, a damn foolish thing to do, but he lays no blame at the feet of his followers. Why? His followers are acting out of honor and nobility and courage. The same kind of thing Alfred Lord Tennyson portrays in his long poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade, celebrating an actual battle in the Crimean War where a bunch of troops marched into cannon fire, knowing they were going to be slaughtered. Why? Ours is not to reason why. Ours is but to do and die. We have to follow orders. Not like the Nazis, the concentration camp guards. Oh, we're just following orders. Because they knew that was wrong. This is, you sacrifice yourself for your leader, so to speak. Okay? That's what's meant by that. However it may be with the guide, she's saying, maybe Gandalf was wrong. Don't know. I don't really know what he was thinking. But you can't blame them. Do not repent of your welcome to the dwarf. Now, notice she calls him the dwarf. Kind of speciesist, if you want. Racist, prejudiced. But then she says this. If our folk had been exiled long and far from Lothlorien, who of the Galadrim, even Celeborn the Wise, would pass nigh and would not wish to look upon their ancient home, though it had become an abode of dragons. Oh, and by the way, whose fault was it that Durin's bane was awakened? Pippin dropping the stone in the well. It wasn't Gimli's. Okay? But what has she just said? Celeborn, if you've been locked out of Lothlorien for thousands of years, and you had the opportunity to go and peek inside, you can't tell me you wouldn't go. And then she says to Gimli, dark is the water of Caladzarim, and cold are the springs of Kibble Nala, and fair were the many pillared halls of Khazad-dûm in elder days, before the fall of mighty kings beneath the stone. She looked upon Gimli, who sat glowering and sad, and she smiled. We understand why he's sad, partially. Gandalf's dead. Why else? All the dwarves who had gone to Moria are dead. Okay. Glowering. What does it mean? What do you do when you glower at somebody? You look meanly, nastily, angrily at them. He's pissed. He wants an orc to kill. he's got to get his shots off, And she smiles. And we're told, and the dwarf, hearing the names given in his own ancient tongue. That is, when she says Caladzarim, we're reading that in what's called the common Western tongue. He hears it in Dwarvish, because she says it in Dwarvish. And she doesn't say it in Dwarvish with a Woodbury accent. She says it perfect dwarf. And he looked up and met her eyes. And it seemed to him that he looked suddenly into the heart of an enemy and saw there love and understanding. He thought, enemy! And he sees instead compassion, mercy, pity, almost. And wonder came into his face, and he smiled. Why wonder? Why does wonder come into his face? Notice the glowering look, it's gone. What has Gimli just experienced from the fairy story essay? Recovery. He sees as he is meant to see. He should see Galadriel as an ally, as a friend. Almost a lover. I say that because Gimli falls head over heels for Galadriel. I don't mean in an erotic sense, okay? But he does fall in love with her, not even in a romantic sense. He realizes this is someone who is worthy of love and devotion. And he replies. He rises clumsily. He bows to her and says, Yet more, yet more fair is the living land of Lorien, and the Lady Galadriel is above all the jewels that lie beneath the earth. Now, what he's just said is like anathema to a dwarf. She is more fair than all the jewels of the world. More fair than all the diamonds, rubies, and sapphires that you can dig out of the ground. Why? What do dwarves live for? To dig stuff out of the ground and turn it into something even more beautiful than it is. That's what they do. They're smiths. They're makers. They're creators. And he says, you, the living you, we couldn't even come close. And there's silence. Why? Because everybody else is just dumbfounded. Their jaws, they're having to pick up their jaws. From Gimli. Okay? And Celeborn apologizes. Let Gimli forget my harsh words. I spoke in the trouble of my heart. Why? If Gandalf's dead, man, this is not good. It's like, we just lost our greatest asset. I'll do what I can to help you. Okay? So, Galadriel says, we know some things. We know what's going on. We know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And then she says, stay here, rest a while. And then she stares at each of them. And for some of them, it feels like a long time. And for some of them, it gives them the willies, like Sam says, thought I was naked. She was looking at me naked. Frodo says, I'm not going to tell anybody what I thought. Boromir, 358. It was exceedingly strange. Maybe it was only a test that she thought to read our minds for her own good purpose. But almost I should have said she was tempting us, offering what she pretended to have the power to give. Okay. Boromir, have a care. When Frodo says, I'm not going to tell you what I thought. I do not feel too sure of this elvish lady and her purposes. And Aragorn, speak no evil of the Lady Galadriel. It's an exclamation. It's almost like he stands up. Boromir, you and I are going to fight, man. You don't speak evil of Galadriel. You know not what you say. Now, Gimli's going to say something very similar later on to somebody else. Not about the don't speak evil of Galadriel, but the you know not what you say. In other words, you're using words, but your brain doesn't really comprehend what it is you are saying. Or your brain doesn't comprehend the thing, the person, the object that you are speaking about. There is in her and in this land no evil. I mean, we could go back. We can't because we don't have time. We could go back and talk about a scene in the Silmarillion where Galadriel has an opportunity to do evil and she doesn't. She sides with the elves that kind of don't do evil. Well, in just a few moments, she's going to have an opportunity to do evil, to choose evil, to claim the ring. And she doesn't. Okay? Why? Because there is no evil in her. So, they stay. They recharge their metaphorical batteries. They get a good long rest. It's like time stops when they're there. 361 at the bottom, top of 362. Galadriel stops by one day, picks up Frodo and Sam. It says, come with me. And she takes them to a little clearing. And there's what looks like a bird bath, little pedestal, stone basin, water in it. And she says, this is the mirror of Galadriel. Top of 362. I can command the mirror to reveal many things. It can reveal the future. It can also reveal things unbidden. That is, on its own, it will show you things. But you can't take what you see to automatically be real or true or what will happen. Why? Because the future isn't, it's the future, it hasn't happened yet. What you do determines, the future. It's kind of like the Mirror of Erised, in one sense, that we're going to see when we get to the Harry Potter novels. So, Frodo, you want to look? And he doesn't answer. So she turns to Sam. How does she appeal to Sam? Yeah, you would call this elf magic. You wanted to see elf magic, right? She goes, I don't really quite know what that word magic means, because you guys use the same word to describe Sauron's deceits, and you use it to describe what I'm doing. I don't want you using the same word about me that you use about Sauron. Sam says, sure, I'll have a look. Probably won't see anything but stars. Why? Water, stars. It's just going to reflect the sky. So he looks. What does he see? He actually sees a lot. He does see stars at first, and then it goes black. And then he sees his father kicked out of his house, hole, walking down the street with all of his belongings. He sees the party tree under which Bilbo threw the big party, chopped down. Okay? He sees the old mill knocked down and replaced with a smokestack with smoke pouring out of it like a factory. Tolkien hated factories. He hated the Industrial Revolution. He hated trains and automobiles. He described them merely as being conveyors to take slaves from their home to their work. He thought of us who work 8-hour days, especially those who work in factories, as slaves. Why? Because they became enslaved to time and to their jobs. They didn't see that a job's whole purpose was solely so that one could live. To live, okay? It's just a means of providing food. And Sam says, I gotta go back. I gotta Ted Sandyman. He's gonna get it. And she says, you can't go back. You can't go back alone. Why not? Would Sam have made it this far alone? No. Who's going to go with him? Boromir? Aragorn? No. Can't go back alone. And Sam says, middle of 363, I'll go home by the long road with Mr. Frodo or not at all. What does he mean by the long road? Anybody know what the subtitle is to The Hobbit? It's The Hobbit, there and back again. So, I'll make it by the long road. What's he mean? We'll complete the quest and go back home, or we'll die in the attempt. He said, but if I do get back home, somebody's going to pay. Okay? So she asked Frodo, you want to look? Do you advise me to look? She goes, don't give any advice. You might see something useful, might not. Frodo looks. He sees a bunch of things. Sam saw a bunch of things too, by the way, right? He saw Frodo tied up in what looked to be a tunnel. Frodo sees a whole bunch of stuff. He sees Minas Tirith, okay? And then he sees an eye. He sees Mount Doom, but he sees an eye. And the eye is kind of roving to and fro. It's like he's shooting out a beam of light here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and it's triangulating. It's getting closer and closer. And as he sees, and I sees him, because he's leaning over the water, looking in, he's bending over like this. Why? Because he's got the ring on a chain around his neck, and it's being drawn. It's not being drawn to the water, it's being drawn to the eye. And Galadriel says, I know what you saw. It's also in my mind. Don't be afraid. He can't get you here. I perceive the Dark Lord and know his mind, or all of his mind that concerns the elves. And he gropes ever to see me in my thought. And she lifts up her arms, and Frodo sees the star, the evening star, Eärendil, and he sees it like a shaft of light come down from that star, and it hits a ring on her finger. And the light goes off in his mind. She has one of the 3 elven rings. That's why she knows what Sauron thinks. At least what he thinks about the elves. But why doesn't Sauron see her mind? Because he doesn't have the ring. If he had the one ring, he would know all about the other 3 rings. He would know all about where all the 7 dwarf rings are. They know where some of them are. Some of them have been lost. Okay? She says, I can't hide it from you. Once you've seen the eye, and a ring bearer would know. That also implies wherever the other 2 rings, elvish rings are, whoever has the other 2 rings, they know her thoughts. And she kind of knows their thoughts. Okay? Don't let anything go or out. So, she says, if you succeed, Frodo, if you destroy the ring, then the power of the rings will be destroyed. That's what she believes. Notice, they don't know for sure what will happen. It may be the one ring will be destroyed and all the bad done with the one ring will be destroyed. But the other rings will retain their power. Because the 3 rings made by the elves, those were made before Sauron made his one ring. And so maybe Lothlorien will go on forever. But she says, I don't think so. I think Lothlorien will become what? Just another forest. In southeast England, if you're looking at a map of England, London's here, Canterbury in the southeast, Canterbury and over here, Sussex and such over here, all of this area down here, like from Portsmouth to the farthest east point, Dover. Portsmouth over to Dover, and almost up to London. Used to be called the Weald, or Weld, W-E-A-L-D. It was all forest. Now, there's hardly any. I mean, thousands upon thousands of millions of acres of just this massive forest. Okay? Now it's almost entirely gone. That's kind of what Tolkien's getting at. Why? Because the elves will leave. They'll go off west, and Middle-earth will become the dull, dreary place we know today. She said, if I could wish, because Frodo says, what would you wish? Like, make a wish upon a star. I'd wish that the one ring had never been wrought, or had remained forever lost. Only problem is, those wishes are what? Useless. Okay? So Frodo says, you are wise and fearless and fair, beautiful, O Lady Galadriel. I will give the one ring if you ask for it. It is too great a matter for me. What is that? It's the ring. It's the ring saying, oh yeah, if she takes me, she'll claim it. And if she claims it, then Sauron will know. Will she be able to overthrow Sauron? What did we hear back in the Council of Elrond? There is none who is strong enough to wield it. And she tells us, oh, cool. So instead of the Dark Lord, you'll have a Dark Queen. And all will fall before me because I'll be terrible and beautiful and blah, blah, blah. All shall love me and despair. She lifts up her hands, the ring shines, etc. And then she puts her arms back down and says, I passed the test. I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel. Because if I take that ring, I will no longer be Galadriel. I mean, she might have the name, but her whole being will be corrupted. Okay? She says, tomorrow you guys leave. Frodo asks one more question. How come I can't see the others? How come I can't see the other ring bearers? And she says, you haven't tried. You've worn the ring 3 times, she says. since you were aware of what the ring is. When was he made aware of what the ring is? Chapter 2, Shadow of the Past. What are the 3 times he wore the ring? Weathertop, right? When he gets stabbed. That's 1. Tom Bombadil's. He puts the ring on. He tries to go out. And Tom goes, "Oh, Frodo, dear boy. Here, stop. I'm not that blind." And at the sign of the prancing pony. It's accidental, but he does put it on. If there's a 3rd time other than those 3, I can't remember where it is. I've been racking my brain ever since then. He doesn't put it on in Moria. He doesn't put it on as they're making their way, When they leave the Shire. Nope, Sam stays behind. I don't think there is another time. But she says, before you could do that, you would have to become far stronger and to train your will to the domination of others. I had up here, written right here the other day, the word magic. Because in the fairy story essay, Tolkien defines magic as the purposeful domination of wills and things. It's the opposite of what he calls enchantment. She said you would have to train your will. Because what would that imply? You'd have to make yourself strong enough to control the other ring wearers. Okay. That means her. And 2 other people, at least. Maybe somebody has one of the dwarf rings. Okay? So, they get ready to leave. And Galadriel has gifts to give. So let's start with Aragorn. What does Aragorn get? Let me back up. What do they all get? It's like, this mass gift giving, and everybody gets some of the same things. They all get a new cloak, right? It's good for disguise. They all get a silver brooch that kind of closes the cloak, okay? They all get limbas, elvish cliff bars. So that's what they all get in common. What else does Aragorn get?
The holster for his sword.
Scabbard for his sword. And we're told the sword that is pulled out of this scabbard will never break. I don't know if that means you have to keep putting it in, or if it's just, put it in once, and it's good for life, Eternal guarantee. But he gets that, okay? What does Boromir get?
Gold belt.
Big old WWE, gold belt. Most famous warrior kind of thing. Make Gondor great again, okay? Does he get anything else? No. What does Legolas get? New bow and quiver with arrows. And it's like a ever-replenishing quiver. I mean, he just pull them out and keep shooting them, and they just keep reproducing, like bunny rabbits, in the quiver. What do Merry and Pippin get? Silver belts?
I think so.
No, they just get the clasps and robes, cloaks. They don't get any specific gifts. It's kind of odd. I don't think they get silver belts. If I'm wrong, tell me. Let's see here. Yeah, they don't. What does Sam get? 2 things. Big long coil rope that will never fail, so it'll never break. And we find out what else about this rope. It's kind of magically enhanced so that you can tie the greatest sailor's knot on this thing, lower yourself down a cliff, and then just kind of go, and it magically unties. Because that's going to happen. And Frodo's going to go, Sam, we just came down that 150-foot cliff, and you didn't tie a very good knot. He's like, yes, I did. Well, it's right here. What else does he get? A little box of dirt. Ooh. What's Sam's occupation? He's a gardener. This is dirt from Lothlorien. This is the best dirt in the world, you know. You put a single grain of that dirt with what you're planting. And he also gets, one of my students pointed out, I think there is in that, I could be wrong, earthworm or orchard. Yeah, it's not in there. One of my students said seeds from a mallory tree, but they're not, okay? They get the seeds later on when they're replanting the Shire. So, anybody we've skipped? Gimli. Okay. Gimli's kind of feeling left out. And she asks, what would you want? Nothing. Nope. It's enough for me to have seen the Lady of the Gallagher, this is 376, and to have heard her gentle words. She says, all right, all you elves, listen to what he just said. No, I can't. You can't leave without a gift. Why? What's going to happen if the one dwarf, the one person leaves without any kind of gift? I know Merry and Pippin didn't really get anything either. Prejudice. There she is, picking on the dwarves again. And he's like, well, I dare not ask. Come on. What's he asked for? A single strand of her golden hair. And all the elves just pull out their swords like, he's dead. We're going to kill him. How dare you? And she's like, oh, Gimli, I'm going to faint. And she gives him 3. Why does he say he wants that? What's he going to do with it? Weave it together and make a little ring, kiss it when he goes to bed? No. He says, I will encase it in everlasting crystal, and it will become the most valued possession of all dwarves. And again, she kind of goes, oh, Gimli. And she gives it to him. And the dwarf elves are like, this dwarf.
In the middle 375, and to Merry and Pippin, she gave small silver bells.
Okay, thank you. Middle 3, I need to, pin will work. Mary, yep, there it is. Each with a clasp wrought like a golden flower. So they leave. They get new boats, or they get boats. It's not like they've been carrying boats. They get boats, they go down the river. They're still being followed by Gollum. Once they get to the river, they're being followed by Gollum. And they get to what's called Parth Galen. I'm skipping all the part about, the Black Riders, now the flying Black Riders, and the orcs that are seen. And they get to Parth Galen, which is like an island, and they've gone past, or they see the big towering sculptures, statues of Elendil and Isildur, which are going to be important because in just a few moments, I think we'll get to this, Legolas and Gimli are going to look at Aragorn and go, wow, he really does look like those guys. And they've got to decide at this point what direction they take. I mean, they've reached the end of, the road that goes like this, so to speak. So river, and now they can go this way, or they can go this way. This way is Mordor, and this way is Minas Tirith. Well, who has to go to Mordor? Essentially. Frodo. I mean, he can pause. He can go the long way around, or he can go to the more direct route. Okay? So they pause. And Aragorn's like, all right, Frodo, it's up to you. I'll go where you go. Frodo's like, hey, give me some time. Because he didn't know what Gandalf intended. He didn't know. Was Gandalf going to go with Frodo all the way to Mordor? Because imagine this for a moment. Gandalf going into Mordor would kind of like ring every alarm bell there would be, So, Frodo says, give me some time, and he walks off, and Aragorn says, don't go too far, orcs and bad things in the neighborhood. And he walks on up the hillside. And the others are sitting around chatting. And they realize he's been gone for a while, and Boromir's gone. So Boromir catches up with Frodo. Pages 397 and following. And they talk for a while until Boromir tries to take the ring. Give it to me. I deserve it. I can use it. You never should have had it. It doesn't belong to you, essentially is what he says. And Frodo's like, damn. He puts the ring on and runs. And as soon as Frodo puts the ring on and disappears, top of 400, what have I said? Boromir cries out. What have I done? Frodo, Frodo, come back. A madness took me, but it has passed. Come back. What was the madness? The ring. Put on the ring. It's the ring trying to get home. Boromir's the best opportunity at this point. Okay? So Frodo runs off, and he goes up and he sits on this big stone seat on the top of the mountain. And we're told, page 400, middle of the page, where he is sitting. He's sitting upon the seat of seeing on Amon Hen, the hill of the eye of the men of Numenor. So you sit on this seat, and it's like you can suddenly see better. Frodo has the ring on. He can also see better. Not better in the physical world, but in the spiritual world of sorts. So that he can see what is happening hundreds of miles away in the north. He sees orcs pouring out of the Misty Mountains. He sees the land of the Beornians on fire in front of the Mirkwood Forest. Okay? He looks and he sees troops amassing kind of everywhere. And then he turns eastward towards Mordor. He sees Orodruin, the fire mountain, spewing flame. And then he sees Barad-dûr, Sauron's fortress. And he sees the Eye, middle of 401. There was an eye in the dark tower that did not sleep. He knew that it had become aware of his gaze. A fierce, eager will was there. It leapt towards him, almost like a finger. That is, and it's like almost like lightning nearby, close. And then over here, and he's realizing, it's going to get me soon. And he throws himself out of the seat because he kind of realizes it's like, while I'm sitting here, it's like there's a giant magnifying glass on me, making it easier for Sauron to see me. What does he not realize at that point? This is what's drawing the eye, because he still has it on. And he heard himself crying out, never, never. Or was it, verily I come to you. Well, it can't be both, right? He can't hear himself, never, never, verily I come, you know. Split personality disorder, maybe? Maybe. Later on in the novel, much later on, we're going to have another scene where there's kind of going to be two voices. And Sam's going to look at them. We're told, with other vision. We don't know what that other vision literally means. And he's going to see a wheel of fire around Frodo's breast. And out of that wheel of fire, a voice will come. Then as a flash from some other point of power, there came to his mind another thought. Take it off, fool, take it off. Take off the ring. So might the never, never, verily I come, might those have been competing forces in Frodo rather than something else? But now there's a voice that comes from outside into his mind. Take it off. Who in the novel so far has used the word fool, not folly and not foolish? Gandalf. The powers strive in him, he writhes and torments, and he finally takes it off. And what decision does he come to? The power of the ring is infecting the company. It's gotten Boromir. His thinking is, it's only a matter of time. So, why did he leave the Shire? two possible answers to that. And maybe they're the same. Maybe they're the flip sides of the same answer. Was it to destroy the ring, or was it to protect the Shire? Or maybe we need to embrace the all-powerful and to destroy the ring and to save the Shire. Okay? Why does he make the decision he makes? If I stay with the company, they will be infected. The ring will overcome them. I gotta save them. Notice twice now. Frodo decides pretty much what's going to happen to him for others. He's got to sacrifice himself for others. All right? So, got to go back to the boats. Keeps the ring, puts the ring back on so that he's not seen. Meanwhile, Boromir goes back, tells Aragorn, kind of obliquely, found Frodo, grew angry, he left, he vanished. Doesn't say why he grew angry or why he vanished. That's all I'm going to say for now. Aragorn, there's more, yeah, but I'm not going to say yet. Okay. Merry and Pippin run off to find Frodo. Boromir goes after them. Legolas and Aragorn go a different direction. Sam goes kind of the direction Aragorn goes, but Sam, halfway up the mountain, stops. I'm never going to keep up with Aragorn, first of all, because he's tall and I'm a midget. What else? Sam thinks the way Frodo thinks. Is Aragorn thinking, well, Frodo's going to try and ditch us? No, he's not. But Sam thinks he's going to try and protect us. That means he's going to leave us. And for Sam, that means what? Me! He's going to leave me. He's going to try and do it all on his own. No. Why? What did he say to Galadriel? I'll go home the long way or not at all. I'm with him to the end. So Sam goes back and he sees one of the boats moving on its own out into the middle of the river, and he, takes a swan dive. Hobbits and swimming. No, they're not Michael Phelps, they're water bad. Frodo rescues them. They punch holes in the other boats, and they go off on their own. And now you have to wait, for the Americans at least, what is it, a year, I think it is? 6 months, I think, for Brits to figure out what's happening. We get the Two Towers. Chapter 1, the departure of Boromir. Boromir went after Merry and Pippin, right? What can the departure of Boromir mean? Well, where do we know Boromir is headed, other than Merry and Pippin? Minas Tirith, he's going home. So it's like, see ya, Boromir, have fun, stay safe right when you can. That kind of departure. See, J.K. Rowling does the same kind of thing in Book 7. We open, we read on along, we turn the page, new chapter, and that chapter is headed, I'm not giving it the wing way, don't blurt anything out, that chapter is headed, Fallen Warrior. And you think, oh my God, no. And the very next thing is a name of a character. She's a cruel person. Because she knows her readers at that point are hooked. And that person that is named, you're like, no, it can't, and it's not. I don't want to give anything too much away. But it is someone that we have come to love and such. So Aragorn runs up. He hears Boromir's horn. He finds Boromir. Describe Boromir's condition. Human pincushion. He's leaning against a tree, pulling arrows out. All right? Orcs piled around him. Aragorn kneels beside him. I tried to take the ring from Frodo. Notice the agency of that sentence. It's very active voice. Where's the blame? It's all on me. I am sorry. I have paid. How's he paid? He dies. He dies for his wrong. Okay? They've gone. The halflings. The orcs have taken them. I think they are not dead. Orcs bound them. Farewell, Aragorn. Go to Minas Tirith and save my people. I have failed. Now, what does he mean, I have failed? I think he means literally, I failed Minas Tirith. I can't go back and save my people. And notice it's my people. It's not our people. Even though he knows Aragorn is the descendant of the kings. If things work out right, he will be the future king. So shouldn't he say, our people? Aragorn's people are the Dunedain, the people of the north. I have failed. No, says Aragorn, taking his hand and kissing his brow. He kisses Boromir on the forehead, and he takes his hand. You have conquered. Why? Does he mean because of all the dead orcs around him? No, I don't even think he means that literally. How has he conquered? What did he just say? What did he, let me give it away. What did he just admit to? His fault. He just, as one of my students said in my first class, he just confessed. He said the thing he did that was wrong. Aragorn says, you've conquered. Why? Because of that admission. Notice, the taking of the hand, the kissing of the brow, it's almost like, I'm not saying it is. Bear in mind, Tolkien is thoroughly Catholic. Thoroughly. Ritual and ceremony of the Catholic Church are woven into his very being. This is almost like absolution and penance after the rite of confession. The penance was all the dead orcs. The absolution, the taking of the hand, the kissing on the forehead, and you have conquered. You have overcome. Few have gained such a victory. Is it an easy victory? Nope, because what did it require? His death. Why did he die? Is it because he tried to take the ring? No. What did he do? He tried to save Merry and Pippin. Just as Frodo takes the ring and leaves the Shire so that the Shire can stay safe, and Frodo's willing to sacrifice himself, Boromir sacrifices himself for Merry and Pippin. Pippin! I mean, come on. Let him die. I mean, who gives a rat's you? Okay? You're going to see when you get the Harry Potter novels, there's one character, man, I just, kill him early. Just kill him off soon. He's in the second book, and he sticks around to book 7. When he finally dies, it's like, good riddance, If you know who I'm talking about, but I won't mention it. So, if you have gained such a victory, be at peace. And what happens? Boromir smiles. I think that's the peace that comes because of this whole almost, not literally, scene of absolution. It's like the guilt's been wiped away. And one of the reasons I say that is, what do we know about Aragorn? What did we see Aragorn do to Frodo on Weathertop? He healed him, partially there. Because we're going to find out later, that wound that Frodo suffered on Weathertop, he can't be healed of it. Not here. That wound will stay with him as long as he is in Middle-earth. There's another wound that will stay with him also as long as he is in Middle-earth. Okay? So, what does Aragorn think after Boromir dies? What does he think about his leadership capabilities? What a horrible day this is, and I've done everything wrong. I mean, he's just riddled with doubt at this point. Okay? So, what do I do? what do I do now? Do I go after Frodo and Sam? Or do I go after Merry and Pippin? Frodo and Sam, they've got to get to Mordor. They've got to get the ring destroyed. Merry and Pippin are alive, and they're in the hands of orcs. Okay, the orcs are like Nazis on steroids. The difference being, Nazis don't eat you. Orcs do. Orcs eat other orcs when they're hungry enough or in a foul enough mood, just for the sheer pleasure of it. And you might not be dead when they're eating you. Okay? I'm not being facetious. I'm serious. So, when Legolas and Gimli find him, he's there at Boromir's feet, weeping, Aragorn is. So they bury Boromir. How? They don't literally bury him. They put him in one of the boats, which they patch up, and they pile around him all the weapons of his fallen enemies. And they put on his lap what? Two things, actually. His big gold belt and the horn. Because the horn is now broken in two. Well, later on, the horn is going to wash up on the shores of Gondor. It's going to be the indication to the people of Gondor, specifically his father, Boromir's dead. Okay? Because the horn wouldn't be broken if Boromir weren't dead. Period. You find a broken horn, that means Boromir's dead. You might as well have Boromir's head wash up. Would mean exactly the same thing. So they each sing, well, take that back. Aragorn and Legolas sing a song, chant a little verse. One to the north wind, one to the west wind, one to the south wind. And Gimli's like, leave me to east wind, Mordor, where foul wind. No, we're not going to talk about that. So they go chasing after the orcs that have captured Merry and Pippin. And they have to run for 3 days. Now they pause. They have to stop and sleep. But the orcs don't, apparently. And this is what is odd. Orcs don't like the sun. The sun burns them. These orcs run during the day. And they're like, something's wrong. These are not your average, ordinary Walmart ordered, orcs kind of a thing. And on the third day, Legolas notices off in the distance smoke. But he also sees riders. And he counts, I think it is something like 110 of them. And the riders are coming towards them. So, on 431, as the riders get closer and closer, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli plop down on the ground. They're in the grass of Rohan, right? And they pull their cloaks about them. And what do the cloaks do? They look like stones, like rock. They're disguised, okay? And these riders get almost all the way past them. 431 at the bottom. When Aragorn stands up and says, "What news from the north, riders of Rohan? How you doing, guys?" And the riders very, very swiftly make a circle around them. Spears out. And apparently the chief rider, top of the next page, says, "Who are you? What are you doing in this land? You speak like Boromir, and you use the language of the West." He doesn't say, "You are Boromir." And Aragorn says, "I'm called Strider." Notice he doesn't say, "I am Strider." I am called Strider. I came out of the north. I'm hunting orcs. The rider jumps off his horse, walks up to them, says, "You don't know much about orcs if this is how you're hunting orcs." Strider, no, that's not right. That's not a name for a man like you. What does this tell us about this character? He's a good judge of character. He's kind of perceptive. He sees beyond. Okay? Just that. There's something strange about you, Strider. That is no name for a man that you give, and strange too is your raiment. Have you sprung out of the grass? How did you escape our sight? Are you elvish? Could be. Okay. Does Aragorn have, I shouldn't go there, pointy ears? Elves don't have pointy ears in The Lord of the Rings. I've seen snippets of the new Abomination produced by Amazon where they've got Spock ears. I mean, they've got Vulcan ears. You might as well have them in little curly shoes with bells on their toes and stuff. Utterly asinine. Anyways, Aragorn says, no, one of us is an elf. And I think he kind of points to him. He says, but we have passed through Lothlorien, and the gifts and favor of the lady go with us. The gifts, clothing. What's meant by that word favor, however? You know what's meant by the word glamour? Like the name of the magazine? I don't know if it is anymore. It used to be aimed primarily for women, and it was like, read this magazine and you will have glamour. You will be glamorous. It's an old word from magic. It implies putting a spell on someone so that you are seen better than you are. Okay? Her favor goes with this. It's kind of like, and she has said, these are not the people you were seeking for. Then there is a lady in the golden wood. As old tales, there we are again, as old tales tell. Few escape her nets. Kind of sounding like whom? Boromir, right? Few who enter that land, Boromir said, escape unscathed. So, few escape her nets. He's talking like fishing net, where you capture something. Fish. These are strange days, but if you have her favor, that is, if she has a spell kind of on you, then you also are a net weavers and sorcerers, maybe. And he looks at Gimli and Legolas. Why don't you speak? How come he's the only one talking? Gimli stands up, because he's been sitting now. Okay, so Gimli stands up. How much bigger is he? Okay, so when he's sitting down, his head's probably like this high off the ground. And when he stands up, his head's probably like this high off the ground. Éomer, the writer who's speaking, oh, he's probably this. Right? So, I said stand up, Gimli stands, plants his feet firmly apart. Why? Grabs his axe. He's getting into battle position. And says, give me your name, horse master, and I will give you mine and more besides. Horse master. Kind of belittling. The writer says, you should tell me your name first. Why? This is my land. It's like, you're in my backyard, buddy. But, okay, I am Éomer, son of Éomen, and am called the third Marshal of Riddermark. That is, I have an actual title. What about you, midget man? Then Éomer, son of Éomen, third Marshal of Riddermark, let Gimli the dwarf Glóin's son warn you against foolish words. So, you're a fool. Because if you use foolish words, what does that make you? A fool. You speak evil of that which is fair beyond the reach of your thought, and only little wit can excuse you. You speak evil of that, the Lady of the Golden Wood, Galadriel, which is fair beyond the reach of your thought. She is so beautiful, your mind cannot even conceive of her beauty. It used to be, by the way, very similar to the one of the old, what's called an ontological argument for the existence of God. God is that beyond which cannot be thought. You can't go beyond God in conceiving of something great. Therefore, he must exist, was the old argument, right? So, she's fair beyond the reach of your thought. But I'll excuse you. Why? Because you have little wit, moron. That's what he means. You are an idiot. You are speaking of that which you do not know. But notice, Eomer catches the subtlety, not quite, not so much subtlety, of Gimli, as do all the other writers. Because, the circle had been this big, around them, and now the spears had been several feet away. And I think now they're, within thrusting range. I would cut off your head, beard and all, Master Dwarf, if it stood but a little higher from the ground. Ooh, now we have a really good tit-for-tat ad hominem argument. You're so stupid you can't even think of somebody so beautiful. Yeah, well, you're so short I couldn't even reach you. And what does Legolas kind of do? He tries to, kind of diffuse the situation. And he says, he stands not alone, you would die before your stroke fell. And while he says those words, it took me, 2 seconds? He pulls out an arrow and knocks it on his bow. Like, go ahead. Channels his inner dirty Harry. Make my day. I'll kill you as you speak. Eomer pulls his sword, and things might have gone ill. But Aragorn jumps between them. So Gimli's got his axe raised. Legolas has his bow knocked. And Eomer has his sword. And, World War III is about to begin. You're pardoned. Kind of interesting. I never thought about that. Tolkien tries not to use, let me put it this way. He tries to use native English words as much as possible. You're pardoned. You're pardon. By God. It's French. Okay? Your forgiveness is what he's saying. When you know more, you will understand why you've angered my companions. He says, we don't intend any evil. Will you not at least let me speak before you kill us all? He goes, okay. But don't be so haughty. Tell me your right name. I want to know who you really are. First, tell me whom. Really? I just said, don't be haughty. Tell me who you serve. Aragorn asks. Are you friend or foe of Sauron, the Dark Lord? What famous movie, George Lucas, had a sentence about absolutes? Only a Sith deals in absolutes, Obi-Wan tells Anakin Skywalker. Or is it the other way around? I never remember. Okay?
You're right.
Who do you serve? Sauron or not? That's an absolute. It's not who do you partially serve. Okay? I serve only the Lord of the Mark, Theoden, king, son of Thingol. He says we don't serve the power of the Dark Land, nor are we at war against them. But then he gives us a little sentence. We desire only to be free and to live as we live, keeping our own and serving no foreign lord, good or evil. That is Tolkien's mindset. Tolkien considered himself an anarchist. Just leave us alone. Okay? That is a very Anglo-Saxon, Old English turn of thought. Why? The Riders of Rohan are based on the Anglo-Saxons. They're based on the Old English people. And notice what he's just said. What do we want? We want to be free. We want to live as we've always lived. We want to keep our own. That's what is our own. And we don't want to serve any foreign lord, good or evil. Just go away, the rest of the world, and let us be. Right? That's what he's getting at. I think, by the way, that passage, Tolkien adopts from the Old English epic poem Beowulf. Just before he dies, Beowulf says, he's kind of, arguing why God could not judge him evilly or as being evil. He says, I did not enter into any foreign alliances, like NATO. I didn't do that. I didn't start any wars. I protected my people. We kept to ourselves. That's it. And then that lousy dragon had to show up, So, whom do you serve? At whose command do you hunt orcs in my territory? Now look at Aragorn's response. I serve no man. What does that mean? I serve no man in this society means I have no one in authority over me. Who is the only person that can say that? Who are you yourself, alone, nameless? Tom Bombadil replies to Frodo. It's someone who does not depend, hang from somebody else. Who is that person? I don't mean God in this context. A king. A lord. I mean a real lord. Not Jesus-y lord, but Lord of men kind of lord. Does Aragorn have anybody above him? No. Gandalf isn't his boss. Elrond isn't his boss. Galadriel isn't his boss. I think you could probably, if he were smart, you could say Arwen could probably, issue some laws and he go, okay, honey. Oh. He said, but servants of Sauron, I follow them wherever. Don't talk to me about your puny little borders. I don't care. Borders are meaningless. If they're servants of Sauron, I'm going to hunt them down. Why? I don't answer to your laws. I don't answer to Gondor's laws. I am in that, kind of in that sense. And he says, and I'm not weaponless, by the way. And probably nobody alive knows more about hunting orcs than I do. But then he says, I am not weaponless. He throws back his cloak. He pulls out the sword in Duril. And he says, Elendil. I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and am called Elisar, the Elfstone, Dinadin, the heir of Isildur, Elendil, son of Gondor. Here is the sword that was broken and is forged again. This is like somebody in, Oxford, a bunch of troops show up, the guy stands up and says, Arthur was my great. Okay, first of all, most people today would go, get the men in the white jackets. But hey, if reality can be whatever you want to make of it, why not, right? No. He says, will you aid me or thwart me? Choose swiftly. We've got 4 minutes left. What's he mean? I'm on a clock here. And notice, the next thing we're told is not Éomer's response. It's Legolas and Gimli. They kind of both fall back and go, whoa, we never seen him like this before. And that's when we get, he looks like those two statues. In other words, Elendil, Isildur, yeah, we can see them in his face now. And Legolas sees what looks like a white flame on his brow. Why? Elfstone. That's a reference to Silmaril, heir of Elendil, who goes back to Arendil, who got the Silmaril that Beren stole, and that's the star you now see in the sky. Oh, we didn't talk about the things Frodo got. The gifts. What gift did Frodo get from Galadriel? What Sam calls the star glass. A little bottle with water in it from her mirror that captured the light from the star Arendil. It's got the light of the Silmaril in it. Going to be really, really, really important later on. Éomer. Notice, he doesn't look at him. It says, tell me, Lord. But before that, dreams and legends spring to life out of the grass. What doom do you bring from the north? Or what news? The doom of choice. Okay? And halflings are mentioned because they're talking about Merry Pippin. And another writer says halflings. They're only little people out of children's stories from the north. Do we walk in legends around the green earth in the daylight? Aragorn. And man may do both. Why? Because we are the stuff that later legends are made from. Have any examples? I used one in my first class and I literally got choked up. I don't know if I will now. 9/11. Yeah. Flight 93. Anybody remember? Were any of you even alive for 9/11? Okay, a couple of you were. Scott Beamer, and I can never remember the other, Todd something was one of the other guys' names, group of businessmen on Flight 93. They got word while they were in the air when the plane changed direction. They started calling people on their cell phones. Right? Talk to their wives, talk to their offices. And wives and offices told them, the United States is under attack. 2 planes have already flown into the World Trade Center. 1 plane into the Pentagon. Your plane, they think, is heading towards Washington, D.C., towards the Capitol building or the White House. And what did those men do? They took it down. Legends. Did they think they were making a legend at the time? No. They were what Gandalf said back in the second chapter. We got to do with what time we have. That's what Tolkien is talking about. Now, we say, well, that's big stuff, though. Yeah, it is. Are all legends made out of just all big stuff? No. It's part of the response. Okay, we'll stop there. I'll put up a quiz for the second half of Fellowship of the Ring. It'll go up today or tomorrow. It'll be due Tuesday or Wednesday night. Okay? Just plow through. Forget about all your other classes. It's the only one that's all important. Finish 2 Towers. Okay? For Tuesday. I don't know that we will, but finish 2 Towers. I might end up having to just do another long recording and just put it up.
Do you mean both parts?
Yeah, all of 2 Towers. Yeah, I know, totally crazy, right? I mean, there's actually going to be quite a bit we'll skip. We'll look at some specific pages, but we'll skip quite a bit. Yeah, and we kind of stay with what's on the syllabus, if at all possible, and not too late. Because when we get to Harry Potter, we're going to be so far behind.